Welcome to Reddit After Hours. This is r/relationship advice, where OP is seriously considering leaving her husband after he blows up at her for rejecting his sexual advances. Our first Reddit post comes from Throwaway No One, titled, "I'm telling my wife that I'm leaving her." As I write this, I honestly can't believe that I'm doing this. I feel guilty, excited, anxious, and sad, kind of all in that order. Next week, I'm telling my wife of 3.5 years that I'm done. I have to leave. We've been together for over 6 years in total, and for almost 5 of those years, she's done nothing to grow herself or be a partner to me. She's been depressed to the point that she quit her job and now just moves from the couch to the bed and back every single day. And despite my best effort, she does nothing to just fill my cup. I'm tired of giving 90 to 95% every single day and still being told that I don't do enough to support her emotionally. I always am being pushed to try harder or to be better, but when I ask that of her, she gets super emotional and blames her mental health issues for how little that she can do. On top of all of that, she also caused a huge rift between me and my family and gave me the "it's me or them" ultimatum, and I chose them. I've made a plan. I found a new place to live and I have a support system, and I spoke to a divorce attorney. Until I'm ready, I am faking it around her. I still call her babe. I still say I love you too when she tells me that she loves me. I don't say it proactively though. Like, I don't say it to her first. And I haven't told her about any of the conversations that I've had about this. It'll honestly be a complete shock to her when I tell her. My question is, do I start dropping hints or do I just rip the band-aid off and leave all in one day? How do I make sure that it doesn't send her into a complete despair and her depression doesn't consume her? Part of me thinks that it's not my problem anymore, but honestly, I still love her, even if I'm not in love with her anymore. I can't just abandon her though. She's told me before that she would harm herself if I ever left her, which honestly made me want to get the hell out more. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. I really think you just kind of rip the band-aid off here. I don't think it's worth dropping hints. Like, you don't want to passively aggressive tell someone that you're leaving them, right? Just get it over with, tell her. And I've always been of the opinion also, if someone says that they're going to hurt themselves if you leave them, that is like a huge manipulation tactic. And yeah, dude, it's time to get out of there. So good luck with everything, man. Unfortunately, you can't let yourself be responsible for her being let yourself feel responsible for her being depressed when you leave her or not. She's going to be depressed. She's going to probably try to gaslight you and say that she's going to hurt herself if you don't come back, things like that. Just stay strong, OP. It's going to hurt, but it'll be worth it in the end. Our next Reddit post comes from Throwaway 193-747-4829, titled, "I rejected my husband for the first time and his reaction grossed me out." So, my husband and I are trying to spice up our passionate hugging life. I'm the one who is actively trying to, and he's just kind of along for the ride. We were watching a racy movie, and I asked him if we can choose 2 toys out of our collection tonight. He gave a "do we have to" kind of reaction and made a vibrator joke. We went to the bedroom, and I pulled out the box of toys, and he chose the wand. I asked him if he can choose another, and he said no, because it feels like pulling teeth with him to try to get him to be proactive in our passionate hugging life. It upset me enough that I told him that I don't even want to do it anymore. It's the first time that I've ever rejected him, whereas he probably rejects me at least several times a month. He demanded that I come back to bed or he was going to get really pissed. I think that his reaction is honestly insane. I try to communicate how I feel about how we go about our passionate hugging life and how it makes me feel unattractive and undesired, but he refused to communicate with me, and now I'm sleeping on the couch. We've already tried going to couples counseling. Like, what the hell else am I supposed to do here? And then OP gives a couple edits. Edit. There was no point where I was forcing him to do something that he didn't want to do. We got toys as part of our compromise for the lack of effort that he puts into our passionate hugging life. For example, I asked him to try to blindfold me for 5 years. He doesn't just say no, he also says things like, "do I have to?" I have had conversations with him about how his remarks like that just kill the mood. And then he tells me that he wants to try more kinky stuff, but when it's actually in the moment, he'll sigh and act like it's just a chore. I feel like I make such a big effort, and this man has not once given me a massage without me asking for it. And out of the 7 massages that I've asked him to do for me, not once has he been able to respond with anything but, "Do I have to?" Edit 2. It honestly feels crazy that this is blown up. I honestly cried earlier today because I heard a couple of our friends did a pottery class together. I literally haven't asked him to do anything like that in years because the first handful of times that I asked him to do an activity like that, he also said things ranging from "do I have to" and "I will never do these things with you." I know that living like this is restricting my happiness, and I guess it's time to take some steps to try to move on. Then, edit number 3. He went out with a friend of his and we talked when he came home. So, my husband is a struggling artist and works part time at a quote regular job. His friend is also an artist and told them that his wife pays a larger portion of their life/bills, etc. But she doesn't mind it because she wants the father of their children to have integrity and be the guy that does the thing he sought out to do, regardless of whether or not he makes a lot of money. My husband insinuated that she's a supportive wife and that I'm not. Honestly, I'm so exhausted. I'm also an artist with a corporate day job and an evening corporate job, and I freelance art on the side. I make about $15K a year on my art. My husband loses anywhere from $2 to $10K on his art. We have a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house, and one room is dedicated to his studio. I do not have a home studio myself. I make do with our living space. I have put thousands of dollars, not to mention my mental health and emotional energy, into helping his art career. He has left me to go to social events, trips, family gatherings all alone because he needs time to do his art. And I have deluded myself into being proud of being such a chill wife, giving him the quote freedom to do whatever he wants. Everyone we know gives me props for being such a supportive wife. I can't even believe that he's comparing me to someone else's wife and saying that I'm not supportive. Truly, what the hell? I'm hoping for an amicable divorce, but my gut tells me that it's gonna be really nasty. I just want a simple life with someone that I love, and this is just such a bummer. That is really unfortunate, OP. It really sounds like you really try to do everything you can to make it work, but this guy just, I don't know, something's wrong with him. You can't lose 2 to 10K a month on your art and still have your wife pretty much support your entire household and still call her an unsupportive wife. That just blows my mind. Sounds like you're making a good decision here, OP. I hope everything works out for you. Our next Reddit post comes from Structure Own 2288, titled "My boyfriend of 3 years wants 50% of the profit from the house that I own." In 2023, my boyfriend and I planned to buy a house together, one that needed a ton of work. Since he was dealing with some legal stuff, we decided that I should take out a conventional loan in my name, and the house would also be solely under my name for now. Our plan was to split the initial payment, like the down payment and closing costs, and future renovation costs 50-50. He really wanted a house that needed work because he liked projects, but I didn't really want that kind of a responsibility. I knew that we didn't really have the time for a project, and I couldn't help him much. Physically, I couldn't help him, as he was planning on doing a lot of the renovations himself, but he assured me that he knew that and he just wanted me to support him. I even told him multiple times that I would rather use my VA loan to buy a move-in ready home with a 0 down payment, but he insisted that I should save my VA loan for later and that all I needed to do was support him. The week that we were supposed to close on the house, we had a huge fight, and I was sure that I was done with him. By that point, everything was already set up with the lawyer, and I honestly felt stuck. I thought that I had no choice but to go through with this purchase, so I signed the papers. The loan and the house were in my name as planned, and since I assumed that I was doing this alone, I covered the down payment and closing costs all myself. My plan was to apply for grants to fix what I could and then sell the house. But then we got back together and he actually started helping me with renovations. He put about $30,000 into the house between money and labor, but the house still wasn't livable. We weren't even living there and we couldn't rent it out either. Over time, we had several arguments about the house, and one major issue being that he was working on a house that wasn't even in his name. He brought this up multiple times when he was in a foul mood, actually. Again, he was still going through his legal stuff, so I told him that I could either pay him back the $30,000 once I sold the house, which I really wanted to do back then because the house was so far from being livable, and I felt like I was just wasting my money on a mortgage and taxes. And I said, or we could put his name on the deed after his legal issues were resolved if he agreed to split the mortgage and future maintenance costs with me. But he again refused this. He didn't want to be responsible for the mortgage or any maintenance. I even paid a lawyer to draft an agreement stating that once his legal issues were resolved, he would officially own half the house as long as he agreed to cover half the mortgage and maintenance, which honestly seemed really fair to me. But he still wouldn't sign this because he didn't want that financial responsibility. Fast forward to 2025, and the house is still sitting there because neither of us have the time nor the money to work on it. I've been the one covering the mortgage and utilities since it's in my name. Recently, there was some water damage in the house, and the insurance is actually likely going to cover it. There's a really high chance that I could end up with a completely renovated home due to the damage. And also, recently, I got approved for over $30,000 to $50,000 worth of home repair grants. So, by the end of 2025, I will most likely have basically a brand new house. Now, he wants me to sell the house after the renovation is complete and buy a new one with him. But at this point, I don't want to sell. I'd rather rent it out because it's going to be a brand new house. And even if I do sell, I don't think it's fair for him to expect 50% of the profit from me. The most that I have agreed to paying him was the $30,000 that he put in, but now he wants half of the total profit from the house, which could be around $130,000 after the insurance and grant money goes into fixing it up. I told him that I'd still honor our original agreement and pay him back the $30,000, but he's upset and claims that I used him. The truth is, I never asked him to put in the work on the house. He did that on his own. Of course, I appreciate what he did, which is why I want to pay him back what he put in. But I don't think it's fair for him to demand half the profit when he wasn't even willing to pay half the mortgage, which was less than $500 for $500. Are you kidding me? Which was less than $500 for him, or even be responsible for the maintenance. What's the fair thing to do here? Does he deserve 50% of the profit from this? OP, I think most people would agree, and let me know down in the comments if you don't, but I would think that most people would agree that he absolutely does not deserve 50% of the profits. He didn't want to have his name on it. He didn't want to be financially responsible for it, yet he wanted all the benefit from it. He wanted all the benefit and none of the risks of having it in his name. That is absolutely ridiculous. And especially how can you afford or not even care to put $30,000 worth of renovations into a house, but you're unwilling to take on less than a $500 a month payment so you can actually have your name on that house? That blows my mind, honestly. But yeah, OP, you are absolutely not being unreasonable here. He does not deserve 50% of the profit from this house. Sounds like he's just being a moocher from you, and good on you for paying him back the $30,000. I think he at least deserves that. But beyond that, I really don't think you owe him anything. Our next Reddit post is from Throwaway495930, titled, "How can I not feel resentful that I make significantly more money and work significantly more hours than my husband?" I have been married to my husband for almost 7 years. When we first got married, I made around $60,000 a year. We got married, and I went back to school for 3 hard and stressful years, whereas he provided financially for us, and now I make $225,000 a year. He only makes around 85K a year. I have a highly stressful job in healthcare and work around 45 hours a week. He is very lucky and he works from home, and I would say he only works an average of 2 hours a week. I know that sounds crazy, but it's honestly just how his job works apparently. He is a very sweet husband, and he makes my smoothie and coffee in the morning as I have to leave pretty early for work, usually around 5:45 in the morning. He does the grocery shopping during the day, and if I ask him to clean something in the house, he'll do it without complaining. The issue is, I just can't help but feel resentful of the fact that not only do I make significantly more money, but also have to work over 40 hours a week when I know he is at home playing video games much of the day and only actually having to work a very small part of the day, like usually just answering a couple of emails. When I get off work around 7 p.m., he won't have dinner ready unless I specifically ask him to make XYZ on the way home from work. On top of that, certain things aren't taken care of that I just wish would be done without me having to specifically ask for them to be taken care of. For example, we forgot about the homestead exemption this year, so we missed out on that. Since he stays home, I wish those kinds of things were taken care of without me having to remind him. I would love to be able to stay home one day, especially if we were to have children in the future. But the difference is, if it were turned around, I would have dinner ready for him when he got home, and he wouldn't have to ask me to do different things around the house during the day. They would just be done. This might be the difference between a man and a woman, though, I think. Maybe. I also have decision fatigue at work, so when he asks me what I want for dinner, I kind of just wish that he would say, "Hey, we're having XYZ for dinner. See you when you get here." We have talked about all of this before, but it hasn't really seemed to get any better for me. I still feel resentful when I call him after a long, stressful day and ask what's for dinner, and he says, "Well, we have salmon and beef we could make. What do you want?" I do want to have children, but I also feel like I'll still have to work full time and make most of the decisions with them and have to do most of the child caring. How can I not feel resentful of making more money, working significantly more hours every single week with a stressful job, and then having to ask for things around the house to be done while he's at home? Please help, and thanks in advance for any advice. OP, I think it's important to keep in mind that you wouldn't have this job right now if it wasn't for him helping you go back to school and financially providing, for you while you were in school. However, I don't want to say that he's lucky for having a job that, he only works 2 hours a week doing because, everyone can pick their job, right? If you don't like your job, get a new one. However, if I was home and I only had to work 2 hours a week, you better believe that if my wife was at work, that it would just kind of be like the expectation that I would cook, I would clean, I would do everything around the house because I'm at home and I'm an adult. I should probably take care of the house and, the cooking and making sure that my wife is good before I sit down and play video games all day, every day. And I don't think you're wrong for saying that, it would be different if the roles were reversed and that you would do the same for him. I don't think that's a man or a woman thing. I think that's a caring about your partner thing and just kind of having your priorities in line, right? So I don't know, OP, maybe you need to take him to some couples counseling or try to get through to him. But, you also shouldn't feel resentful that you make more than him. If anything, you should be, happy that, you're successful, you have a great job, and he should be happy for you. If my wife made significantly more money than me, I wouldn't be resentful of her. I'd be happy for her. I'd be like, hey, go you. We both benefit from, both of us making as much as we can, right? But yeah, OP, I think you guys can do some real good with some couple counseling here. But, if he's really only working 2 hours a week, I agree. I think he needs to take on way more responsibility of the house, and that really shouldn't be left up to you. So I don't know. Hopefully you can get through to him and things get better for you, and I wish you the best, OP. Our next Reddit post comes from BBHH444, titled, "My partner ruined my grandfather's funeral for me." My partner and I have been together for 10 years, and we have a 3 and a 5-year-old together. In that 10 years, we have only spent one night apart from each other. My family live interstate, so we have never visited, mostly because he can't go a few days without weed. My grandfather passed away and we couldn't afford to all go, so I went alone for 4 days. My flight home was booked for 9 a.m. I booked in a panic and didn't realize that it would take 2+ hours to get from my parents' house to the airport, which means that I would either catch a $250 Uber or make someone wake up at 5 a.m. just to take me. My sisters pointed this out and asked if I could change my flight to the same as theirs, which was at 3 p.m., so the 7 of us could fly home together. They hired a 7-seater car, which was very helpful. I mentioned this to my partner on the way to the airport, and he absolutely cracked it because in his eyes, they should have booked the same flight as me instead of me changing my flight. I changed my flight the day before I flew home, the night of my grandfather's funeral, and when I told him, he cracked it so badly. I got paragraphs of messages about how much of a disappointment I am and how I'm choosing them over him, how they should have been considerate and caught the early flight, even though that means leaving my mom's house at 5 a.m. My 3-year-old niece and 6 other family members would not have liked that. He tried calling me 40 times, and when I answered, he was yelling at me and saying just horrible stuff to me. My sister had to message him to tell him to stop. His argument was that the kids were evicted to come pick me up. Evicted, huh? I stayed calm and I said that I can catch a lift home with my sister or they could still come pick me up. It just meant leaving at 2 p.m. instead of 10 a.m. He just wouldn't see my point of view, though. He kept saying how inconsiderate my family is and how the kids don't even want me to come home and that he may not be here when I get home, etc. Honestly, I could go on and on. I could have written a book with the amount of paragraphs I got sent from him. I spent the last night and day crying, just feeling so depressed instead of enjoying that time with my family. I stopped replying for a day, and on the way to the airport, he messaged me saying, "Have a safe flight, love you. The kids and I will be there to pick you up." I got in the car and nothing was said. He was a calm person and he took us to dinner and then just drove home. This was 2 days ago and still nothing has been said of the incident. I don't understand, why did he make me feel so horrible if when I got home none of that mattered? I'm left feeling so emotionally drained and robbed of my family time. He added honestly so much more stress to my trip. I also woke up to a phone call from him at 7 a.m. the day of the funeral to him yelling at me because he couldn't find our son's school jumper. I feel so emotionally drained from this. I don't even know what to do. I just don't understand how he made such a fuss, made me feel so horrible. Then when I get home, he acts like absolutely nothing happened. I'm not even sure whether he just wanted to ruin my time or make me feel guilty for leaving him for 4 days. Anyway, thank you all for listening. OP, I don't know what your husband's issue was. It just sounds very bizarre to me. You say that you haven't spent more than one night apart together in the last 10 years, so maybe he just felt like super like angry or resentful towards you or something and took it out on you in like the worst way possible. Like you're literally grieving your grandfather and he's acting this crazy towards you. Like that's just so bizarre to me. Whatever you do, OP, you absolutely should not just let this go without addressing it in some way, shape, or form. I know I say like couples counseling and therapy all the time, but like, sometimes they can be a good mediator for things like this, but something has to give. You guys got to have a conversation about this because telling you that like the kids don't want you to come home is a horrible thing to say to, your wife and the mother of your children, and saying that he might not be there when you get home, implying that he's going to take the kids and run off. Like that is an insane thing to tell your partner. So yeah, OP, I absolutely would not let this go and I would absolutely address it. Because like for some people, like that's stepping into divorce territory right there. Threatening to leave and take the kids because you went to a funeral is stepping into divorce territory for a lot of people. So I don't know, OP. I hope it works out for you, but yeah, you got to address this. That was Reddit After Hours, bringing you r/relationship advice. Thank you all so much for listening, and if you like these videos, like and subscribe as we post a new Reddit video almost every single day.